Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Restaurant Owner Lessons. I'm excited here to have my friend Edward on the call all the way from sunny California.
I'm so
And
glad to be here.
yeah, it's exciting. Um, I'll introduce real quick our history. We met up through a couple of connections, business leadership type things. I was referred to Edward's fine group via being more focused on food service restaurant folks. So we've struck up a great relationship over the last couple of years now. I guess it's been a little while,
Yeah,
and he was kind enough to jump on the call and give me some of his history and share with our audience. For those new to the podcast, we focus on restaurant owners, key players, people in the industry that need to learn something, and we hope to bring you some value. So tell us a little bit of Edward about where you started. We actually talked about it a couple weeks ago when we were on another call, just kind of chopping it up, as they say.
I put myself through college being a food server in a restaurant, a New Orleans restaurant, when I was getting my business degree. And I got a little financial help from my parents, to get my undergraduate degree, but it wasn't enough for me to really thrive. So I became a food server. And when you are a food server at 18 years old and you're learning what tips are and comparing to how much money you're making, to your friends who had no jobs, at college, you start to really love the restaurant industry, and I was able to really thrive at college by schlocking New Orleans food and really loving it. And because of that experience, I really wanted to own a restaurant. That was something that I was really, really interested in. So I went to culinary school. And when I went to culinary school, I thought, if I'm going to own a restaurant, even if I didn't know how to cook, I should know what the chef is doing,
There you go.
right? Have a good partnership. So I went to culinary school realizing I didn't want to cook for a living, but I really wanted to be able to run a restaurant. Long story short, that was how I got into it. But then I got my hotel, restaurant, and tourism degree. I worked in restaurants, hotels, fine dining, celebrity chefs, institutional food service, even event planning, and I traveled all the world for it, and I really loved it. I really, really loved it,
That's so
and
cool.
my highest position in the hospitality industry was VP of operations for a major hotel group.
Wow.
Um, and I spent a good 28, 29 years in the hospitality industry. But why am I here today and what am I doing now? I'm sure many of your listeners can appreciate this, is that restaurant owners and managers and directors and high-level executives get burnt out. I
Yep.
too got burnt out in the
You got the
restaurant.
experience from living it, right? You got the reality of living it.
Yeah, I got the reality of living it, and I'm going to share a little story if I could.
Of
Um,
course.
you know those deep and intense emotions, and you probably have seen it on television if you have not experienced it yourself, where you are crying, and this intense crying, you can't even catch your breath. You
Mm.
can't even say a word because you are so overwhelmed with emotion. Well, I had that experience in front of my direct reports in a very big meeting, when I was VP of operations.
Hmm.
And I realized with the stress and the misalignment and not enjoying my work, that I was experiencing burnout. I
Wow.
was
So
not.
so you just broke down right at a critical moment. It just hit it all hit you.
When you're trying to be inspiring, when you're trying to impact change, when you're trying to communicate policy or get people on the same page, and you have that burnout
Right.
emotional breakdown,
Right.
you realize that you're not as impactful as you would like to be, right?
Well, I picture you in that room, and I'm sure it felt awful. But you know what it reminds me of is the fact that food service of any level, any fanciness, any whatever is a most basic human connection. And it's a shame that any of us could get to that point of being so overwhelmed with the process of serving so many people in whatever format you're doing. It should ever get to that, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny, Edward and I joke a lot as we talk about the East Coast West Coast thing, and he's got a very calming sense of presence, which I love, and I would hope that I'm not calming, but it's funny that as we look through the food service angles and different levels of the business, you know, we sometimes can lose sight of what it's about,
Yeah.
and lose sight of what the feeling should be to serve another human food, or hospitality in any shape or form, you know, drink or the environment or the vibe. And that's a really good point you bring up, because I think a lot of people in this industry are getting towards burnt out or experiencing forms. I know when I've been on these local, or not local, but Facebook groups of like cooks and chefs and this and that, there's kind of this like pirate like mentality that we want to celebrate how crazy our life is. And
Mhm.
I would predict that you would say it doesn't have to be that way. Tell me about some of your experiences. I mean, I know a lot because we've talked a lot, but share with people what you think about that.
Well, you're right. I do agree that you do not have to live the chaotic hospitality industry that some people may glamorize,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't have to be that experience. You can have a fulfilling hospitality career that balances your work with your life, that is aligned with what's important for you, your values. And the industry is varied, you know, and the experience that you want to have is out there, you know. If you don't want to work nights and you don't want to work holidays, you don't have to, you
It's a
know.
great point. Great point.
If you, it's out there. It's just, but why do we believe that, you know, what we see on TV or what we're told about what our industry means is the experience that we're going to have, and hopefully that's the wisdom or the stories or the pitfalls that I've experienced that I can share with your listeners about having a fulfilling experience, being truly satisfied in your work, and having the impact that you want while avoiding burnout.
Absolutely. Do you think that the new generation of whatever that word means, because that's always, you know, every year is a new, every hour is a new baby somewhere. Um, do you think that they're less likely to put up with the BS, so to speak, of the industry, at least how we used to think about it, or maybe how we self-interpret? Do you think that there's a change, a wave is coming of change?
Sure, absolutely. And, you know, and you use the word, you know, generation and the new generation, you know, and people who are in different generations, whether you're Boomer, Gen X, Millennial, you know, whatever, we're quick to blame other generations.
That's right. That's right.
Very, very quick, you know. But what it just goes to show that there's a great opportunity for understanding and motivations. You know, yes, there is going to be a sea change in how our workers, you know, come to work or why they're seeking work. You know, and us as owners or managers, what we're realizing, what made us successful for the past 10, 15 years, because of motivational and generational mind shift changes, it's not going to work for us in the future. And we can blame other generations, you know, about their work ethic or their motivations, but blame doesn't turn into success. It's about adapting and understanding and becoming aligned together. You know, yes, people are coming to work for different reasons. People are seeking different things. You know, a boomer, you know, may have wanted to define success as making millions of dollars, you know, but a new generation that we're referencing may not define the success in a different way, but instead they're looking for connection and belonging. You know,
Absolutely. That's so well said. Well, I think that you bring up a couple of things. One was, well, it's a couple of three things. My old VP at my former job used to say chefs like to muscle instead of finesse. And that was always kind of stuck with me. We were like, oh, I'll do it. I'll get in there. No, you can't do it right. I'll do it. And that's a road down a terrible path. As well as, I was talking to somebody yesterday and I was saying sometimes we like to hire, I've heard in the tech industry, the lazy people because they actually find the fastest way to get it done.
yeah.
Right, where we like to say, "Well, I worked 24 hours and I didn't get sleep," and da, da, da. And they're like, "Well, you could have done this, this, and this, and then you would have been normal." So I'm just like this kind of innate need to suffer, which I don't want to get too biblical here, but it's kind of like, do we have to be, as you're saying, do we have to have this crazy lifestyle, or can it be managed and be actually somewhat normal? It's a little bit, I don't know if it'll ever be completely 9 to 5. I guess it could be, and it is for many people. Fair enough. I've always felt like chefs should, started out as restaurant. To me, like a restaurant chef is a chef. At least at some part of your career, you got to be able to run a restaurant, and then you can get into food photography and maybe personal chefing and different ends of it. But what got you out of day to day was just the burnout, and what was your next move after that?
Well, to continue the story of my burnout experience and crying in front of my direct reports, my my boss realized that there's an opportunity for me to have my own growth and development, and he recommended that I get an executive coach. You know, my owner got an executive coach, and so I, you know, hired an executive coach. And it is through a year and a half of conversation, and not just conversation. It's deep work. It's not therapy. It's you're having a conversation to make some change. In your life, that I understand what I valued. I understood what was important for me. I understood what triggered me. I understood through my coach who challenged me about what wasn't working for me. And so I changed my experience and my perspective of my work. And I realized, as I referenced before, I wanted to spend time with my wife. I wanted to spend time with my parents. I wanted to have more fun. I didn't want to work Thanksgiving anymore. And um, and so I changed. I said I'm going to get out of operations, and because of that experience and how executive coaching transformed my life, I became an executive coach, and that is how I'm showing up today. I am showing up as an executive coach who transforms owners and general managers and directors, their experience in their life. I'm not showing up as a restaurant owner. I am showing up as an executive coach who helps individuals in the restaurants and hospitality industry to transform their experience to be really fulfilled, have work-life balance, and still have the impact that they want. And getting out of the operations of the hospitality industry forces you to reflect, what hard decisions do I want to make? I decided to get out of the hospitality industry into coaching. Other individuals, your listeners, may say, okay, I may want to get out of fast dining into quick service, or I may want to sell my restaurant and decide that I want to be a team member instead of an owner. Or if their hard decision may be, I want to replace the toxic people that work in my restaurant with people who I want to be surrounded with. Change requires hard decisions, and this is where we get to reflect. What are we afraid of? What are the limiting beliefs that are getting in our way? And let's knock those things down and step over them so we have a fulfilling life.
I just wrote down what you said. Change requires hard decisions. I love that line. That might be the title of the show. Um, Outstanding feedback. I mean, it's really top. I think. Let me ask you this: where do you see people going? You know, you're in a server position, for example. You're a line cook. You're a prep cook, and you see that this is going to be something that you want to do for a while. What? How do we get those hourlies, so to speak, to start thinking bigger picture? Because what you're really referring to is definitely, I'll say it's a need to have, but it's also kind of a nice to have in a way. Meaning, I'm working, I'm making money, I got to pay my bills, which is everybody's, default kind of thought process. But where do you see somebody getting into that next level thinking? 'Cause here's what I'm getting at. I think our industry many times can be looked at as it's almost blue collar,
Mhm.
and that's fine. But where do we start to turn people's heads towards the future and say, look, like if you want to make this, I think people fall into a career sometimes, right? They
Mhm.
say, I'll just try this thing for a couple of years, and they end up doing it for 12 years. And then they go, I guess I'm a restaurant guy. How do we get them to step forward into that more executive thinking and working on yourself kind of stuff? What tips could you give people, or what might twist that thought in their head?
Great. I think that regardless of where you are in your career, whether you're a dishwasher, a busser, or you are a first-time supervisor, or you are the CEO of a company, okay,
Mm-hmm.
is to reflect what is the experience I want to have in the short term, right? And what are the stuff that I love doing, you know? And at the same time, what would I what would I like my life to look like 10 years from now? You know?
That last one is, sorry to interrupt you, but the last one is the biggest thing I think out of any of it. With so many of us, we just kind of plod forward and we just say, well, we're just doing the thing we're doing. But, anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, and people overestimate the impact and the change that they can have in the first 6 months or a year. They say, I want to be, a general manager a year from now, even though I'm a first time supervisor. And people overestimate what they can do in a year. And they also underestimate what they can do 10 years from now. They limit themselves, you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely.
So, first and foremost, I would say, what do you love doing? What is it about being a dishwasher that you really, really enjoy? You know, it could be, I like to feel that I'm part of something big and I get to, in my small way, I get to make my coworkers happy. You know, I make things more efficient, and to look at the big picture of their impact rather than going with the story, I just wipe plates. You know,
Hmm. Yeah.
if you just say that I wipe plates, then you're not connected to your work. But if you are saying what I do is important because it makes everyone's life better or more efficient in the restaurant, you're much more connected to your work. You know, and realize now that you've identified that, run with it. In my next position, where can I have even more impact on making things more efficient and making people's lives, a little bit easier, right? So it's not just I wash dishes. Instead, my next position allows me to have that kind of impact that much more. And it just goes to show what do I love or what am I good at and expanding your impact. That's what the next position is going to be, right?
I
You know,
love it. I love it.
but if
Yeah,
I
I think
go ahead,
there's
I'm
such a
sorry.
great conversation to have. And I'm thinking myself in my head about our business and how we could have interviews and kind of, I think there's so much about breaking that routine of just, well, I work 6 days a week, and then I sleep on the seventh and do my laundry and do this and that, and then before you know it, I'm back at work. And so people don't plan and plot for the future, and I'm getting better at it. We're all getting, it's not that I'm sitting here or you're sitting here even having the magic wand, but to have those conversations, at least in your head, and say, well, what do I want to do? Do I
Yeah.
want to do this for 20 years? But a lot of times people just do it because they never change course. They never said, hey, you know what? I think I like this business. Let me make this a home and let me make it a career versus a job. And I think if some of the owners and people that we're talking to could inspire that within their staff, you'll find a lot more engaged staff and a lot easier time of managing them, right? If you want to be slightly selfish for yourself and say, okay, well, let me get people on board so that I'm not nitpicking them and having to catch every little mistake because they're a little bit more self motivated.
Yeah. And, I referenced, inviting yourself or your team members to ask that question, where do I want to be 10 years from now, right? It may not be in the restaurant industry, and that's okay. It could be simply, what, I want to buy a home, my first home in Bethesda, 10 years from now. I'm only a busser and I only make a certain, minimum wage. How am I ever going to, buy a home in Bethesda 10 years from now? Well, 10 years from now, you're going to have your home. Okay. But if that's what you want and that's what you envision, where do you need to be 8 years from now? How much money do you need to make then? What are the skill sets you need to have? If that's where you need to be at 8 years, where do you need to be 5 years from now? Maybe you need to be making a certain amount of money, with connections, and maybe you need to have a good credit by that time, right? So if that's where you want to be 5 years from now, where do you need to be 3 years from now? Maybe instead of a busser, I need to be a server now.
Yep.
Right. And so if you understand where your vision is 10 years, from now, and you slowly back out where you need to be and create manageable milestones. If I'm going to be a server 3 years from now, then 2 years from now, maybe I need to be a service assistant. Maybe I need to be a busser. And if that's where I'm going to be 2 years from now, a year from now, maybe I need to improve my communication skills. Or for somebody who is not confident in their English, maybe start, I want to be more confident in English. And so 6 months from now, I need to enroll into a communication class, all the way to get to the point, hey, by the end of this week, I want to just explore what's possible with communication classes.
Absolutely.
And then you say, well, at the end of today, what's something I should do that gets me going? And again, going back, we overestimate what we can accomplish in 1 year, but we underestimate what we can do in a long-term vision. But if we just break it down into small, manageable goals, think about the impact we can have. And again, whether you're a busser or you're a CEO, have long-term vision, but remind yourself what you love doing now, what you're good at now.
Yeah.
And
That's
combine
awesome.
the two.
That's wonderful advice. And I think what I just came up, with course correcting, right? I think we often just let the ship go off to the side, and it's wait a minute, we're not on track. And if we do a quicker course correct, or at least an assessment, one of the skills I think we need to teach in schools is just that self-development idea. I mean, we teach so many other things, and I won't go down that path too far, but just the self-development and self-improvement, whether it's reading a book by Tony Robbins or whoever your favorite author is or whatever, just to get yourself towards managing yourself. So I think a lot of the workers and the people that I see in the industry, they just fall into a job and they just keep doing it. And a few will say, you know what, I could be a manager. And the problem sometimes is that they're making, for example, a bartender is a great example. They make so much money. And I remember back when I was in my 20s and I would see these bartenders at a local place and they're like, yeah, I'm going to do this and this and this. But I know the kind of money they're making. And then you go back 5 years and they're still behind the bar. And that's okay if it's a conscious decision. But for me, my number one kind of sadness is like people that just fall into doing something forever just because they never took a chance to do something different. And if it's their passion, it's great. Whether you're, picking up rubbish or, painting the sidewalks or whatever. But if it's many times just because, well, I need a job. And so I would love to inspire some other owners, managers in this call to take a bigger, deeper look at your staff and see what you can do to motivate them. That's another self-serving a little bit thing, is that don't you feel excited when you can help somebody, and they can look back. Because one of my biggest things, they look back, Chef Tony had this talk with me, and boy, it was, I don't know what, but it sparked something in me, and I had to go try this new thing, new position, or even new career. I had that happen to me actually a couple weeks ago. One of the delivery drivers that we use, companies we use, the driver was just really well spoken and really, I don't mean to be disparaging, but he shone a little bit better. I said, is this what you really want to, is this what you're doing? Is it, well, I don't know. And he'd kind of had that same thought of like, I'm just, I don't know, just kind of doing this. We talked for a little while, and then a couple weeks later, he came back and he said, I spoke to you and you motivated me to try to be a police officer. And I was like, well, that's amazing. And I feel very good about it just because we had a casual conversation, but I felt like God told me, hey, maybe this guy needs a little talk, and not that I'm telling him anything revolutionary, but it was nice to think that, okay, you had a little impact on that guy, and he at least had a new thought. So more specifically with what you're doing now, what kind of people are you working with, and what's the industry morphing into in 2024 and beyond? What do you think is the path forward? What do you think's going on with economies and food costs and different things like that?
As an executive coach and the restaurant owners and the hospitality professionals I work with, one of the biggest challenges that many people are experiencing is retention, and also hiring the right people. And then when you find the right people, keeping them, and I think that is what this industry is going to be struggling with for the next 5 years, if not longer. What's great is that the hospitality industry is slowly bouncing back. And so there are more jobs.
Amen to that.
There are more jobs out there in the hospitality industry. But as people are learning that, minimum wage is going up in certain districts, or there's more opportunity, people switch. They jump to different positions faster. So how do you keep those people that you want to keep, who do a great job, who make connections with your guests, who make everyone's job a little bit easier, who actually makes your job fun, Tony, as an owner.
Right.
You look forward to going to work because you're surrounded by people who enjoy being there. So I think the conversations I've been having are about keeping the right people.
When they say human capital, is that sounds like a weird, yeah. No, I absolutely agree. And I always like to break this down to the small operator and ways that they can, I don't know, have this kind of level thinking even in a very small restaurant or small business. And I should share with people on the call that you also work with many different types of businesses as well as restaurants and hospitality, which I was excited to learn a couple weeks ago on our chat. But yeah, breaking it down to those smaller restaurant operations that think, I've only got 3 servers. What's the big, I don't need to be a leader. Am I really a leader? Well, yeah, you are, and whether or not it's reading a book or going to a seminar or watching YouTube videos, I think self-improvement is a never-ending practice, and I would encourage anybody that's listening to elevate yourself by realizing the impact you have on the people that work with you and how they work with you and what you can provide for them as far as growth and opportunity. In a small business, it's actually a harder job because there's not, 13 levels of ascension into VP of operations as you were. But I think there's still opportunity. And I would also say this as a little piece of advice, have a frank conversation with people. Say, hey, you might not be a lifer at Chef Tony's, right? We've got our business. We've got some people that are pretty close to being lifers with us so far. But we just ask that the time that you spend with us is valuable, impactful, fun. You make lots of money. We make some money, and open and keep the communication open. let us know what's going on. I'm always very straight shoot with people because we already have enough, as you know, in our industry, enough surprises that are almost designed into the system. But I try to impact people from the beginning to have, understand they're part of they're a cog, like we're a cog in this big grand system. As you said earlier, how much changes when the dishwasher doesn't show, or the assistant manager, flakes out and gets drunk the night before and doesn't come in, or, has a poopy attitude and isn't leading people. Any interesting stories you've had in your career of people that you either positively remember or negatively remember about the industry?
Oh, absolutely.
A million.
Yeah, 30 years in the industry, there are lots of stories. There are lots of stories, and whether you are the CEO of a cruise liner with 100,000, employees, or you are a food truck operator owner with only one other team member, being a leader shows up in very similar ways, right? And I'm going to share a story, about, connection and caring. Okay, because I think that is what's key with keeping your team, or even having them be loyal, to you. And not that loyalty is of utmost importance, but you shared that story of yours about connecting with a team member, who wanted to be a police officer,
Mm-hmm.
right? You know, in order to encourage him to live his dream of being a police officer, he's going to have to leave your restaurant,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? And it's not that you don't want him to leave, you just want to make sure he's successful,
That's right.
right? And this is where the care and connection come in, okay? And, when you're talking about when things don't go right, how do you still have that care and connection, even if it may not be a good fit? I was working in a hotel, and I was the senior most person in the hotel, and we had a nightclub in this hotel, and one of my managers, it was brought to my attention with a camera that the manager was not in this nightclub that was very busy, had a lot of activity, but he couldn't be seen on the floor for
Hmm.
an hour and a half. And then by searching all of the cameras, we discovered, oh, he was in a pantry with some guest.
Near to well.
Right? And
Right.
people make choices, and but people get caught in the moment,
Right.
right? And you
Right.
realize, my vision of what success looks like in the moment may look different than that particular manager. Okay, so we have to have this conversation, about getting aligned, with this particular team member. This is the vision I have, and this is the vision that I have of everybody who works here. Is this the experience you want to have, right? Is this something that this is important for you? Because I'm noticing from what we saw on the cameras, you're motivated by something different. That you want something different,
Such a
right?
such a kind way to say something.
But
Such a
the
West Coast. You're motivated by something different. We know what you're motivated by.
yeah. And sometimes you have to use less than delicate language, but the idea here is that
Yeah.
I I had every reason to fire this individual.
Mm.
Every reason. He it could be seen that he was taking advantage of a guest. He wasn't on the floor when he needed support. Maybe there was even theft or pilferage while he was off the floor. Maybe the security guards were allowing people in who weren't supposed to be in. There's so many reasons why
Hmm.
it was important.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Chef Tony here. You don't know me, but you're gonna soon, I hope. We own and operate 2 restaurants in Maryland, and I want to introduce you to the launch of our new company, Epic Eats Marketing. We have been in business for 17 years, been in the restaurant business 37 years, and as I said, we own and operate 2 restaurants day to day, in and out. We understand the deal. I'm launching this company to help other restaurateurs market their restaurant digitally, represent themselves online, make digital offers, look at lead creation, emails, texts, etc. Help you as a client to be able to grow your business. I understand the challenges that we go through. Is social media the best thing for you today? Is email marketing? Is text message marketing? Maybe it's a touch of all, like your best recipes. Nuances matter. And so I wanted to introduce you today to opt in down below or to the left or right. I have some free information we're going to give you to get you started on the path of improving your digital footprint. It's 2024 and beyond, and we're going to be not going anywhere but up in technology. We love to create guest experience for our people. We love great food. But the key is that you're out there getting discovered. I'm empathetic to restaurants that don't have the impact digitally that they should to be able to survive in today's market. So give me a moment, give me your name and email down below. We'll get you some free information to start. If it's a fit, down the road we can have a conversation and perhaps take you as a client to understand your needs as a restaurant business and help you move forward. I appreciate you watching. Great luck on your next shift. Take care.
And so this is where we get to have a hard conversation with our team members and even with ourselves. How do I maintain my standards? How do I have the vision that I want? And have people be accountable and still show care and connection. Okay, because that care and connection that makes hard conversations a little bit more impactful. Okay, and I didn't fire this individual, okay, but instead, through hard conversations going a little deeper, allowing that team member to decide, you're right, this isn't for me. I'm looking for something different. I can't maintain the standard that you're looking for, and I'm going to decide to step away. Mm-hmm. You know what? Can I tell you, in the 30 years in the industry, after a certain point, after I got my halfway point, my 15-year point, and to the end, I think I only had to fire 2 people in my industry.
That's
in 15 amazing. Years, to fire only 2, and that was because of theft. That was because of major safety issues. But everybody else that we decided to separate ways, they decided.
Yeah.
They decided because of care and connection, and
that's great.
But you notice that I'm going to say I've retained a lot of people, and motivated them, and they got to decide, I want to become a police officer, but I'm going because I feel supported and I feel cared for. And Ed, I am loyal to you and your vision.
I love it.
I forgot the original, question, but you shared a story, you asked for stories about, where there may be misalignment with you and your team, and there may be misalignment with you and the new generation, of workers.
Mm-hmm.
No care and connection, and when there isn't a fit, be able to clearly communicate why there isn't a fit, and let them decide, either you meet my standard or you decide you don't want to. If you're going to meet my standard, you're going to understand the expectations and you're going to accept and agree to those expectations. If you're not, you get to decide that you're going to leave.
No, that's phenomenal. That's a great way to look at it. Absolutely great story. And I think as you told that, I thought about running into that person. You want to be able to shake their hand out in the world, out in the normal world, so to speak. And whatever way it went down and whatever ending result of the decision, you want to be able to kind of look each other in the eye and say, hey, good to see you. I hope you're doing well, that kind of thing. Because, there's going to be a few cases. I actually had one somewhat recently that we had to let somebody go that was with us for quite a while. And there was some theft issues and some misappropriated situations in the restaurant, but they called me recently and said, I just wanted to apologize, and I was going through some things, and I was wrong in what I did. And I said, hey, you know what? It takes a lot of chutzpah to call me, and I know that's not a comfortable call, but I appreciate that, and I wish you the best, and all that good stuff. And there's been very few times when I would say that I've had to kind of put somebody in a category of not really wanting to see them ever again.
Yeah.
But people also, as you're around long enough on this earth, you know you gain experiences, and you know that you can, you know, you see what path people are on, and you kind of can say, we're going to see how that plays out, but I'm pretty sure down the road they're going to regret their decision. Not
Yeah.
that you wish that for them, but that you say, look, they're overall a good person, but they didn't really make a wise move here. And
Hmm.
so I think it's our job as stewards of the industry to and just humans to try to do our very best for people and lead them in a way that's respectful and gives them an opportunity to thrive. And as you said, if they go on a different path and they want to finalize and end up on a different career or different, we just want to be able to feel like we impact their life in a positive way. I think.
You're right, Tony. You
Yeah.
know, as you share that story, what I'm taking away most from that is that this particular individual said, you know what, I was going through a lot at that time and I made some bad decisions, which just reminds us that every person you meet in your restaurant, guest or team member or someone on the street, the way that they're presenting is not their full story, you know? And we don't understand the decisions they make because we don't understand their motivations, what they've been through. And this invites us, if somebody disappoints us in some certain way, a team member, a family member, you know, this is where we get to step in. What's really going on here that may help you and I understand why you made that decision? You know, I can't solve the problem for you, you know, and or I'm going to decide not to solve that problem for you, you know, but help me understand so that I can support you, you know,
Yeah.
and so that you can make a better decision next time, you know, and even as a young manager, I made assumptions. I made assumptions. This person's lazy. This person has no work ethic. This, you know. But when I learned later on, you know, wow, this person's mother is really, really sick. You know,
Mm,
this this person, you know, had a flat tire this morning. You know, one time, sure, you know, that flat tire, you know, if it's a pattern or it's we're seeing some dishonesty, okay,
right.
it's a harder conversation, but you approach each conversation with a new perspective.
That's
But
right.
go in trying to limit your assumptions, limit your interpretations, and be curious because you'd be surprised about what you learn, and then you too would make a different decision as a manager or as an owner.
Yeah, I love that, and I think what it shows, as you've said so eloquently, is compassion, communication, and I think if you come out of that, you'll develop a much stronger relationship with that person, and maybe with yourself in a way that you could elevate your own level of management to handle somebody in a proper way. And because we're all learning, nobody was born a restaurant manager or a chef or a people, expert. Um, some are better than others naturally, but I think as we move forward, in as you said, the industry is back on its feet and growing, and hopefully everybody's moving in the direction they want to for their end result. I love that we can be an agent for change, so to speak, and really impact them. And I just think for me, it's definitely a little selfish, but I love the idea of legacy and of being able to be on my grandpa chair, even though I'm in a chair now and I am a grandpa.
Yeah.
Um, Much older grandpa one day, hopefully, God willing. And, look back and say you impact a lot of people. And we've had some great conversations, and you've connected me with Nate and Moriana. We actually connected last week. She wants to do a podcast, so we're going to talk that through eventually. So, this whole earth is all about connecting with humans, in my opinion.
Yep.
For an East Coaster, I'm actually very soulful, I think.
I think so too. And as you're talking about your grandpa chair and sitting in that, in a very truncated way, you just described to me your 10-year vision,
That's right. That's
right?
very well stated. Well, we've had some great conversations. I don't want to cut it, but I don't want to take your dad. I know you've got a busy time, so Any advice for those that maybe are getting into their own self elevation and self knowledge about what they could do for the business? Do you have a couple closing tips to think about?
Okay. Yeah. One of the most important things I think is taking away is understand who your support network is. Okay. And you are going to ask yourself, either as an entry level restaurant worker or again, a CEO, all the extraordinary things that you want to accomplish, you know? And we put too much stress on ourselves and put too much energy on figuring out how we're going to do that. Okay? When the right question could be is who can help me do that?
Hmm.
We don't have to do this alone.
Well
Ask
said.
for support, either emotional, educational, or having a shift covered, you know, whatever the case may be, realize that it's too hard to do this alone. Find
Isn't,
out who can support you.
isn't that a microcosm of life? Couldn't you just have clipped that out and put that for a Bible study or a life journey study? It's too hard
Absolutely.
to do this on your own. Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. I love it. Um, absolute gems. I'm going to take my notes and put these into the show notes for anybody that wants to watch this. Spread this around to your coworkers, your assistant managers, your hourlies, everybody that could benefit from this amazing conversation. Edward's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you as we always have. And how can people support you in any way? Do you have? I know you're very much like a client-based, one-on-one kind of guy, but is there anything they can do to support you out there on the internet?
Great. If someone really wants to have different kind of impact or transform their lives, either grow their restaurant industry, grow their restaurant business, or excel in their career, or maybe they want to do some team coaching or group coaching, let me be your who, so you can figure out your how. If you're looking for some support, as an executive coach, or just for some advice about how to clarify your vision, align your vision with your team, or simply get results. If you're looking for a who and to support you, I could be that person. My name.com, edwardvicedo.com, is a great way to explore that. But if I am not your who, find your who.
Amen to that. Thanks again, Edward. Absolutely great show. Thanks everybody for watching Restaurant Owner Lessons. I want to thank Edward for his time. I'll list the connections down in the description. And I, for one, will give you an unsolicited advice that this guy is on fire and a very good listener and a very eloquent speaker and a guy who understands how to drop an F-bomb once in a while, too, when you need to.
That's true.
Call him up and have fun. Thanks, everybody, for watching.
Thank you. Bye, Chef.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Chef Tony here. You don't know me, but you're gonna soon, I hope. We own and operate 2 restaurants in Maryland, and I want to introduce you to the launch of our new company, Epic Eats Marketing. We have been in business for 17 years, been in the restaurant business 37 years, and as I said, we own and operate 2 restaurants day to day, in and out. We understand the deal. I'm launching this company to help other restaurateurs market their restaurant digitally, represent themselves online, make digital offers, look at lead creation, emails, texts, etc. Help you as a client to be able to grow your business. I understand the challenges that we go through. Is social media the best thing for you today? Is email marketing? Is text message marketing? Maybe it's a touch of all, like your best recipes. Nuances matter. And so I wanted to introduce you today to opt in down below or to the left or right. I have some free information we're going to give you to get you started on the path of improving your digital footprint. It's 2024 and beyond, and we're going to be not going anywhere but up in technology. We love to create guest experience for our people. We love great food. But the key is that you're out there getting discovered. I'm empathetic to restaurants that don't have the impact digitally that they should to be able to survive in today's market. So give me a moment, give me your name and email down below. We'll get you some free information to start. If it's a fit, down the road we can have a conversation and perhaps take you on as a client to understand your needs as a restaurant business and help you move forward. I appreciate you watching. Great luck on your next shift. Take care.